This is the Story Trust Media Podcast.
There are 4.5 million podcasts in the world, but less than half of them made it to 10 episodes. This is the Story Trust Media Podcast. I'm Jon Goehring, and today I'm going to deliver to you the key to consistency. The one thing that podcasters miss, the one little habit they don't have that leads to all these podcasts failing and dropping off. So the essential question, why do so many podcasts fail? Or sunset, as they like to say. Podcasters say, my podcast sunsetted. This is a nice way of saying, I stopped doing it. It's not a thing anymore. Now, don't get me wrong. There may be times in people's lives for a podcast to sunset or no longer release episodes, right? There may be a time, who knows, when this podcast sunsets. That's okay. I'm not saying that you're a failure if your podcast doesn't continue on into eternity. But I am saying that most people don't set off to start a podcast with the goal of, I'm going to hit about 8-9 episodes and then I'm going to stop. Most people have greater, longer-term intentions than that. So why don't they succeed? A lot of people have theories about this, and I think there's some validity to this. The concept of giving up too soon because they're expecting more from it, expecting results quickly. Now, that is an enemy in podcasting, is this idea that if you just throw some content out there, let it live on some dark corner of the internet, people will just magically find it. And your magnetic personality will just light up every room, and all of a sudden you'll grow famous and have tons of followers just because you exist. No more toxic lie has been spoken in the world of content creation. The whole create it and they will come. If millions of people are creating it, there's just simply, the numbers doesn't work for you, right? You can't have people flocking to every podcast out there. So clearly there has to be some differentiation between the good ones and the bad ones. And you have to be one of the good ones if you want any sort of audience whatsoever, just because there's so much content out there and not enough podcast listeners to consume all that content, right? It's the concept of supply and demand. So much supply in the marketplace, not enough demand or audience members to consume all of the supply out there. So your supply better be the best supply there is, or one of the best, right? So that's one theory, is people have that mindset. And that's certainly true, right? We can't have that mindset that things are going to turn around for us overnight and we're going to have an audience. We also can't have the mindset that the only reason we're starting a podcast is to get some big audience, because that's going to lead to disappointment too. That's why at Story Trust Media, we use it as a content creation engine for your brand. So even if you don't have a large audience on the traditional podcast platforms, you have a content engine that can be repurposed in all other ways. And it's actually the most efficient way to create content for your brand is through podcasting. So there's that. There's also building relationships, learning from other industry experts. All of those great benefits to podcasting. So you can't just think podcasting is all about growing this audience, because you're going to be most likely disappointed if that's the case. So could that be why many podcasters are failing? Yeah, absolutely. It could be certainly a reason. But I want to bring up another reason that not a lot of people talk about, and the secret to overcoming this. The reason is motivation and consistency. This has to do with energy. This has to do with workflow. So many people think that when they get so excited about an idea in the beginning, that excitement is just going to carry on forever. But like anything, ideas and excitement fade over time. You get less motivated to do things you were originally very motivated to do. Think about your diet. Think about your workout plan. It feels easy at the beginning because of the amount of motivation. It then gets harder and harder as the freshness and that shine wears off. Or the grass is always greener, right? You ever hear that phrase where one day it's podcasting is going to be the thing to elevate my brand. The next day it's maybe I'm going to be moving into some other way that I feel like my brand is going to grow. People don't stick with it long enough, right? And here's the key. to overcoming that. A very simple key that a lot of podcasters know, but most don't do. And that is the concept of batch recording. If you're just starting a podcast and you are not at least a month ahead, you're at risk of burning out. You're at risk of the idea and this motivation and all these exciting feelings fading, and your podcast fading with that. Batch recording is the antidote to lack of motivation. See, if you can put aside one day a month or one morning a month, and you can have all your topics and your concepts and your guests lined up, if you're a guested show, that eliminates the problem of needing to be motivated every single week, and it keeps you ahead of the game. So many podcasts that only last 7, 8 episodes, it's because they didn't have 7 or 8 episodes in the can to begin with before they even released their show. So my recommendation to you, if you're starting a podcast, record at least 5 episodes before you release number 1. 5 episodes. Also, try to record anywhere up to 5 at a time. If you can record a month of content, 2 months of content, and get out of the way at one time, it relieves pressure from your calendar. It keeps you motivated to keep going. And you stay ahead, barring some catastrophe. And you know what else? It actually creates good content too. People say, oh, if I batch my content, I'm going to get tired. I don't know if I can keep the energy up for that amount of time. That's a myth I've found in most cases. Podcasters think that because they think that if they just do one episode at a time every Monday, it's part of their routine, whatever, they will like magically have the most energy for that episode. And if they do any more than that, they'll start to burn out. I haven't found that to be the case. I can't speak for everyone, but I've found that most podcasters actually gain energy as they have these conversations. They gain momentum as they batch these recordings. It's the same thing with other tasks in life, right? All of the thought leaders on productivity, they'll say that batching any task is good. You batch your emails, right? You batch your client reach out. You batch your invoicing. All the stuff that you do for your business. Why don't you do that for your podcast? Batch your recording. If you do your own editing, you batch your editing. That is the key to not burning out. You get a month or 2 of content done at once, and I promise you, if you can make this like a monthly or once every couple of months or even once every quarter habit, you won't get burned out. You won't go, oh, I have to record podcast episodes again. It'll actually be a welcome interruption to your routine. So that one key changes everything. And I am confident, I'm willing to die on this hill, that if everybody, every content creator, every podcaster were to just follow the concept of batching, more than half of podcasts would have made it to 10 episodes. Your podcast doesn't need to sunset when your motivation drops. Your podcast can continue strong because of the power of batching. So I encourage you to think about how you can batch your recordings and continue your podcast on for years to come, and continue to make it the content creation engine for your brand that it is. If you want to learn more about the work that we do at Story Trust Media for content creation, podcasting, and batching those recordings together, storytrust.media for a free consultation. Thanks for checking out the episode this week. I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for checking out the Story Trust Media podcast. Learn more and get in touch with Jon at storytrust.media.